Hello, everybody, and welcome to another exciting episode of
Psychopinion.
We are here today with our one of our favorite guests, Robert Walker.
Hello, thanks for having me back.
And today we are covering a very interesting subject, in my opinion, which is Ed and Lorraine Warren. There was many movies inspired by them, including one that we had talked about in a previous video, which is Liza's favorite scary movie, which is The Conjuring.
Yeah.
And that's where I got the idea to kind of discuss Ed and Lorraine Warren and the movies that were inspired by that they inspired that were inspired by them. Yes.
Yeah, they're plentiful.
And this is quite the subject. So to be honest with you, this might be a long one, and there might be some spoiler alerts because we are discussing movies.
Oh yeah, definitely spoilers.
And we are discussing movies, and we're discussing Ed and Lorraine Warren, and we're going to bring the truth to what really happened. Hopefully shine some light on all of that and kind of everything around that. So I figured we'd go ahead and start, and I'd just give a little bit of background on
right.
Ed and Lorraine Warren. I know that we've all been anticipating this show, so if anybody has anything to say, please just jump in, but I'm going to go ahead and just kind of get us started off here.
Do it to it.
So we've got Ed and Lorraine Warren. Ed was born September 7th, 1926. He died August 23rd, 2006 at 79. His wife, Lorraine Warren, she was born January 31st, 1927, and died April 18th, 2019 at 92. They lived in Monroe, Connecticut. They're Roman Catholic, and they believed non-religious people were more likely to be haunted than religious people. The reason that statement is important is because Ed was a demonologist, and actually he was the only non-ordained demonologist recognized by the Catholic Church. And Lorraine was a clairvoyant, and she actually worked with the police on missing people cases, missing person cases, or people, if there's multiple people missing, I suppose, in the 1980s.
I wonder how successful she was with that.
You know, I really didn't get a lot of. I did look into that, but I really didn't get much on what kind of effect she had on those cases.
Or how many? Did it say how many cases?
It just said that she was. I looked at a couple sources that said that she worked with the police on missing person cases.
And that was all it said?
That was really. It didn't have a whole lot of information on how many people she helped find or any at all. It really didn't say. I'm sure there is a record of that somewhere, just probably beyond my scope of research.
Hard to find for public scavenging the web.
And I did research multiple sources for this topic, so I mean, it just wasn't readily available, and I had so much information I was looking at it. I didn't dig too deep, but it wasn't there. Continuing, Ed grew up in a haunted house, and Lorraine realized her abilities. Now, this here, and a lot of things to this whole story, and a lot of things that we're going to be talking about here, there's kind of multiple versions of what happened based on what sources you look at. So, and it's funny, too, because, like, this one in particular, I read a couple of sources that had said that Lorraine had realized her abilities at 12, and that she was different, which would be speaking about the clairvoyance, of course. And that she was with a bunch of she was at a private school with a bunch of schoolgirls, and they were planting a sapling, and she just had this vision of seeing the tree fully grown years in the future. And
that's interesting.
you know, and I guess the nun that was there, because I believe it was a Catholic school, said that there was a nun that was there, and she asked her if she was, what are you staring off? Are you looking into the future or something? And she said yes. So there's that. But then there's also other sources that say that she was seeing auras on people, things like that, as early as 8.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I had seen in one of her actual interviews in her later life that she said she had seen floating lights around people.
And that was probably at a younger age.
Oh, yeah, very, very young
So-
when she was first coming into understanding what she was capable of.
So that's a little strange because I feel like all of these sources were kind of straight from the horse's mouth, but they were all a little different.
Yeah.
Kind of talking about when she first realized her abilities. I didn't know what her mindset was, and especially her later years. That might have played a part, or perhaps maybe she just, I don't know, said different things in different interviews. But either way, so I have that different.
Didn't she, when she met Ed, she saw aura around him, and then also she kind of saw like they were going to be together, and she kind of had a vision of that as
Now,
well.
if which we'll get to, there was a romantic thing in The Conjuring 2 where they talked about meeting each other and how they, there's this very sweet moment where they were telling the story about how they met each other and they knew that they were going to be together forever, but that was absolutely 100% Hollywood.
I thought
That old Hollywood magic.
So I don't know anything about that. That may have happened. Maybe that's something that they had gotten from the interviews with Ed and Lorraine Warren, that they had said that they had those conversations. But as far as I know, that was just Hollywood making it romantic.
I hope that's real. I think it's cute.
Okay, well, that's good. I mean, I hope it's real for you.
It's real in my head.
So Ed and Lorraine Warren, Ed and Lorraine, at this point, they're not the Warrens yet. They dated as teenagers, meeting at a theater Ed worked at when he was 16 years old. He went off to the Navy. They were married when Ed returned from the Navy in 1945 after his ship sank. You got a couple days off, I guess. They give you a couple days off for your ship sinks.
I mean, understandable.
I guess while they're trying to figure out what to do with you, or maybe just kind of hey, you almost died, maybe you should take a day off, I don't know. But he returned then, and then that's when they married. After they married, he did go back to war. When he got out of the military, he was a police officer for a short time. I'm not sure how long now that I'm saying this, but he was a police officer for a short time. They did end up having one daughter, Judy. As Judy grew up, she would tell people that her parents were artists. She never really admitted to people who her parents were as she was a kid.
Well, I know that Ed Warren was also, I think he went to school for art.
Yeah, and I was actually going to, that's actually the next thing on my list here.
Oh, well, go ahead and give us the info.
No, absolutely. You're 100% on. So she would tell her parents that they were artists and they wanted to make a living being artists. So they found an interest in sketching. They were landscape artists, both trained landscape artists, both of them. And so they got really into sketching and painting haunted houses and haunted areas.
Pick a topic that's fun.
Yeah, and so when they were there, they would ask the people about what was going on and the hauntings that were happening, things like that. So I think that's really sort of also helped pique their interest as to what they were going to do with their lives. After that, they ended up becoming paranormal researchers, and they founded the New England Society for Psychic Research in 1952. So there was a lot of criticism, and Lorraine actually did get tested by Thelma Moss at UCLA, and she was found that her clairvoyance was far above average, is what they said in multiple sources, in quotes, far above average. So apparently, given that Thelma Moss is a professional and did print her exact findings, there is evidence of clairvoyance.
Interesting.
In Lorraine Warren. So then they ended up seeing themselves how they made their money, because they actually never charged anybody for the cases at their house. If they came to your house to check out whether you were haunted or not, they didn't charge you. So how they made their money at that point in time in their young married career was they were educators, and they made their money in the lecture circuits at colleges. They actually said that they wanted to discourage people from exploring the occult and kind of doing what they were doing, because I'm sure they believed that they were trained and more capable than most people, being that Ed was a demonologist, that they were both very, very Roman Catholic, and that
the only demonologist outside of the church at this point.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that really kind of brings us up to where the movies kind of go into play here. So what I was sort of thinking is that we have multiple movies in what is called the Conjuring universe. And at first I was going to just purely stick with the Conjuring universe, but I ended up finding myself going outside of the Conjuring universe. If you know what I'm talking about, the Conjuring universe is The Nun, The Conjuring, obviously, all three movies.
Annabelle.
And the Annabelles. That is considered the Conjuring universe.
I guess loosely maybe La Llorona.
Oh yeah,
it's in there, even though it barely touches with Ed and Lorraine.
It does, and I think that we basically call it the Conjuring universe because they're all kind of movies made by the same people. So outside of that, there's The Haunting in Connecticut, which was made years earlier, as well as Amityville Horror, which the first one was made in 1979. The one that I'm familiar with and watch the most is the the more updated version, which was in. I have notes right here.
Don't know what year, but the Ryan Reynolds one, if
Yeah,
I'm not
Ryan-
mistaken.
Yeah, the
yeah,
Ryan Reynolds.
our favorite, our
Yeah,
boy.
I think
which is-
everyone
which
will
was
know.
2005. Ryan Reynolds,
Really?
2005.
Wow.
Yes.
Yeah,
That was-
that's a
So
little
that
ways
was a
back.
while ago.
Yeah.
So these movies were based off of the life of Ed and Lorraine Warren. And when I say based, I really wanted to take a second to kind of put out there that I think that based on true events or based on actual events or however you want to phrase that is the largest phrase in Hollywood, because that literally seems to mean anything, and we're going to get into that as we go forward. But I swear, the three of us being here today, like, you could write a story that the three of us were here today, and then we went off and robbed a bank and built a airliner and flew into the sun and made a community inside of the sun, and we became the Sun People. Some crazy stuff, and we could say it's based on loosely based on actual events because we were here.
We gonna start a war with the moon people?
I mean,
Yeah.
we might, and that's what I'm getting at is that it's just because we're here, and if that story were to start with the three of us here, you could say it's loosely based on actual events, or it's
We're
based
pretty
on,
inspiring people, I guess.
It's based on real. So I mean, it's and just that blows my mind what they can actually get away with and pull off is based on actual
Yeah.
events. And we did cover this also with Ed Gein when we did that one, talking about Leatherface. You know how they said based on true events, and it's like it was
Came up with
pretty
everything.
it was pretty far from what had actually
Very far
happened. So
from.
very far. So and we've got a lot of that here today. So kind of what I wanted to do was we did already put out a spoiler alert. So what I wanted to do, and I thought this would be fair to the listeners, viewers, whoever is tuning in here, I kind of printed out the standard description of these movies because that way we don't have to spend too much time describing them. It'll save some time, but also maybe cut down some of the spoilers. And people that are listening that might want to see these, it'll just give them a little bit about what it is, or if they're not familiar with it at all, it'll tell them a little bit what it is. It'll tell you a little bit what it is, you the listener. So the first one we have in the order, and these are not the order that they were made in, but these were the order that they happened in real life based off of Ed and Lorraine Warren.
So timeline from the earliest happening date
Yes.
going up in
So the
Up in
Nun,
time.
the Nun that was made in 2018 is actually based on 1952, which was the first event in the Conjuring universe, which actually happened before Ed and Lorraine came onto the scene.
Oh wow.
But it does give you some backstory, and we're about to discuss that. But the if you don't mind, the description of this one is when a young nun at a cloistered abbey in Romania takes her own life, a priest with a haunted past, and basically a young nun who is about to take her final vows are sent by the Vatican to investigate. Together they uncover the order's unholy secret, risking not only their lives, but their faith and their very souls. They confront a malevolent force in the form of a demonic nun. So that is that is the plot of The Nun, and that is the first movie in the Conjuring universe. Did either of you guys see that? What are your thoughts on The Nun?
I have seen it, and I actually fairly enjoyed it.
Really?
Out of, I guess, anything that's outside the normal Conjuring movies, I think The Nun struck me as the most fun, personally.
It was. It definitely had fun moments. I think that there's a character in it named Frenchie. I thought he was kind of fun.
Yeah. It's good to have a side character named Frenchie. I
Yeah.
feel like that's just like some like Indiana Jones style movie magic right there.
And Frenchie was, and here we go with some spoilers. He was one of the men from inside the town that actually brought them out there. And he kind of ended up helping them out through the movie.
Oh,
But
he started the whole thing by finding the corpse of the nun who committed
yeah, exactly.
suicide.
He was coming along. I think they only went through there when they were getting supplies or something like that for the town. There's some kind of backstory there. Romanian shit, I don't know.
Oh, well, he was actually French-Canadian, so he was from Canada, and
Yeah.
just decided, like, traveling, that this town had the most interesting people, and he felt like he could really help these people and be a part of the community, and it was very fulfilling to him, so he stuck around out of all places. That was the place for him.
I'm French Canadian also.
Sure.
I wonder if we're related.
Huh?
I don't know.
And the nun's face is just so creepy.
Yeah, and that kind of brings us around to where we're at with that is the nun had nothing to do with Ed and Lorraine Warren. So as far as this goes, there's not a whole lot that I have to add about that, except for it introduces Valak, and Valak is a demon that's kind of posed as a nun, and they see. I mean, we'll kind of get to that moving forward, but Patrick Wilson or Ed Warren has a vision of this nun in The Conjuring 2. It's somebody that he paints, and
Well, they both have, both Ed and Lorraine have separate visions of the nun, if I'm not mistaken.
I believe Lorraine sees that the nun will be somehow the demise
Yeah,
of
and
Ed
then
Warren.
She's
in
the, I
Conjuring
think, the
2.
first one who has the vision. Ed has another vision, starts painting her.
And that's one thing that's kind of cool about these movies is that they do a good job at connecting one part to another, having the Easter eggs. I will give them that. It is fun when you watch them because you're like, oh, that's from that movie.
I remember that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's kind of one of the more fun parts, I think, of this series is that you're kind of like, oh, that's cool. Yeah, all right, they included that, and which can also lead to discrepancies, which we'll get to in a little bit as well. But so The Nun, decent movie. I personally did like it better than some of the others. If I was just strictly critiquing movies, I liked it better than some of the other ones.
Well, for me, it had it wasn't like solely relying on the jump scares, which I feel like a lot of I guess
Conjuring,
the Conjuring
definitely.
movies
Oh, yeah.
they've mainly focused on jump scares.
Yeah.
They have a little bit other than that, but I feel like The Nun really had more to it than that. Obviously, it did have jump scares, but it felt
a little more meat to the story.
Oh yeah,
as well,
definitely.
yeah.
And some of the scenes just this, like just the cinematography to it. Some of the scenes just really stuck out for me. There's one where there's apparently the whole abbey have these bloody bags over their heads, and there are certain things that really stood out.
Yeah.
That'll stick with me.
Yeah,
And a good movie does that to you.
Yeah.
And it also plays a lot off of that old school Catholicism kind of scary.
Well, any of the
Yeah.
those grandiose tales where it's not just a ghost or a demon, it's an actual, once again, spoiler alert, an actual gateway to hell that opens up, and this is what comes forth is Valak, the deceiver, the Duke of Snakes, or whatever they are.
And in some ways, for that, it was reminiscent to me of Exorcist, Poltergeist, some of those older ones that kind of were playing off of the religious aspect with the demon coming through or the evil spirit. So that was almost kind of nice to me, and I don't even know if they meant to do that, but it's kind of a nod to that
And
older.
I think that's why I
classic,
liked it a little bit more as well. Is
Stuff we grew
I
up
do
with.
enjoy that.
Because we grew up with a lot of that with the religious undertones and the demons and stuff. So Frenchie actually is another connection. We had brought him up. He was the hero in The Nun, and they actually show him being exorcised. It's a different actor playing him, but they show him being exorcised in The Conjuring. In one of the lectures, they show the video, supposedly after The Nun, Frenchie was, and that's, sorry, spoiler alert again. This whole thing's a spoiler alert. I'm not going to keep saying it. So Frenchie was possessed, and they led us to believe that in The Conjuring, that was one of the videos that they were watching, was the exorcism of Frenchie.
Well, it's actually playing or in the movies at least, when Ed's giving a speech at one of the colleges or whatnot, and it's when he meets the family for the first time.
The Perron family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
For the and that's the Perron family is The Conjuring, so that we keep track of all this. I just want to make sure.
The first Conjuring.
First Conjuring, yes. So moving on.
Yeah. Is that the next one?
Annabelle Creation.
Oh, never mind.
Made in 2017, but took place in 1952. It actually starts off taking place in like 1943. That one kind of jumps around a little bit. But the plot to this one is former toy maker Sam Mullins and his wife Esther are happy to welcome a nun and 6 orphan girls. We got the nun thing going on again here. Sorry. And 6 orphaned girls into their California farmhouse Years earlier, the couple's 7-year-old daughter, Annabelle, died in a tragic car accident. Terror soon strikes when one child sneaks into the forbidden room and finds the seemingly innocent doll that appears to have a life of its own. So, I don't know if you guys got a chance to watch Annabelle Creation.
Not the creation. I've seen the first Annabelle, and that's the only one that I've seen for those specific ones.
Oh, yeah. We saw it a while ago.
I did see this one when it came out, and I'll be damned if I remember much about it. And I will tell you straight up, I'm not a big fan of the possessed doll toy scenario in horror movies. It's just never really been for me. I think Chucky's kind of lame. I think Child's Play is kind of lame. Just not my gig.
I'll definitely agree with that. Out of all like the classics, per se, the Child's Play and Chucky never did it for me.
Yeah.
It just kind of doesn't do it.
The possessed doll, I personally don't find it scary. I think it's a little cheesy or corny, in my opinion. That is just my how I horror movie. It's how I horror movie. I'm going to use that as a verb here. That's how I horror movie. Is I'm just not into possessed dolls. I'm not into that whole thing. So,
well, everyone has those things that strike their fancy, and I'll agree with you on that. It's not mine.
I think that all dolls are kind of possessed because they're all kind of creepy and scary in their own way.
I'll also kind of agree with that. I'm not a big fan of dolls in general, especially those old classic ones like the porcelain head dolls. Yeah, those are all a little bit creepy.
I mean, I like creepy stuff, so I would probably have a creepy doll hanging out if I thought it was creepy enough, but it wouldn't really scare me. I would think I would like just the weird factor of it, maybe. I don't know, but I'm strange that way. I collect weird stuff that doesn't make any sense. But it's a good thing you guys really didn't see this one, and I'm going to tell you why. Because this one is basically made up as an interesting backstory. There's really nothing to do with the Warrens in it at all, which is kind of what we're focused on. And even though we were going to go to the movies, and that's why I included this, there's really just it just has no real value to the story as far as the Warrens are concerned. It's just, and it's made up. It's complete bullshit. Spoiler alert for anybody that doesn't know this, and I'm really sorry to ruin this for you if it does, but the Annabelle doll is actually a Raggedy Ann doll.
Yeah?
And it's not very scary. It's really kind of, just a silly kid's Raggedy Ann doll.
It's
And,
kind of a large one, too. It's like maybe
it's
sitting on, with its legs forward, maybe like 2 feet tall or something.
Yeah. It's one of the bigger ones.
Yeah.
It really, and being that it's a Raggedy Ann doll, we all know that absolutely creation is bullshit because it's not a handmade doll. It's not something some farmer made or some old toy maker made.
Raggedy Annabelle.
Yeah, Raggedy Annabelle. Maybe that's where they came up with it. Well, no, they didn't actually, and I know where they came up with that. So we'll get to that. So Annabelle creation doesn't matter. If you're looking to look into the Warrens, you can just go ahead and skip that one. I don't really remember it, so I'm sure it just either wasn't for me or it wasn't that good. But that does bring us to Annabelle, which was made in 2014 and was based in 1967. And this is John Form, played by Ward Horton, thinks he's found the perfect gift for his expectant wife, Mia, Annabelle Wallace. It's played by Annabelle Wallace, which is interesting because, it's Annabelle, but, neither here nor there. A vintage doll in a beautiful white dress. However, the couple's delight doesn't last long. One terrible night, devil worshippers invade their home and launch a violent attack against the couple. When the cultists try to summon a demon, they smear a bloody rune on the nursery wall and drip blood on Mia's doll, thereby turning the former object of beauty into a conduit for ultimate evil. So, there we go. That's and I think that's kind of the beginning of the movie because realistically, I remember Annabelle being about 2 nursing students who got this doll, and then they talked to the Warrens about it. Maybe I went through all this stuff beforehand. I'm just going off what I remember, which I don't remember a whole lot about this one either. Then the Warrens got involved, and they told them what was going on, and the doll was writing notes on parchment paper, which they didn't own, and children's handwriting. And
I don't think that was part of, it was writing notes, or basically what the nurses said in the movie was, it was a gift from her mother, and then it would just, randomly move from place to place, or it would be, like looking at the ceiling or fall off the chair, and then it would just eventually start changing rooms, and
Messing up crap.
it was it was really creeping them out.
Yeah, the mother
Yeah.
got the dog, gave it to her daughter, nursing student. She had a roommate, I think a boyfriend. They were
So-
terrorized.
And it did say that in the movie that it was like writing notes and whatnot, but it didn't say like it was on parchment paper or anything like that.
Oh, okay.
For what I believe. For
Oh,
the
you know,
movie.
you know what? You're absolutely right. I'm switching over to the notes in real life. In real life, they said parchment paper, which was interesting because the nursing student said she didn't have parchment paper. So that's a real life fact, okay, about the.
And that's actually pretty creepy.
Yeah. So, and it was written in children's handwriting, and it would say like "help us, help me." Was the real notes. I think in the movie it was like, "Did you miss me?" Things like that.
Yeah.
But in real life, it was "help me, help us," parchment paper. They didn't have parchment paper. The thing was moving around, stuff like that, and apparently at one point in time, maybe it was bleeding, something like that. I think I read that the doll itself was bleeding.
I think the actual doll did,
Yeah.
like the real life doll.
Yeah. Yeah,
I don't
that's-
think in the movies it did. I think they showed it kind of absorbing blood,
Mhm, mhm.
like
Nice.
from the cultist woman who had it in her arms when she died.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Like
And that was like the introduction to the movie, am I right?
um.
And then that's when it led to the nurse.
It's
it
a
was,
little while in, but
Yeah.
like the nurses were big in. They were the scene in The Conjuring, the first Conjuring.
yeah.
So that's where we were introduced to Annabelle before all these other movies
Yeah.
came out.
Uh-huh.
So that's most of. Even though I've seen the Annabelle movie, like I pulled most of my stuff just from
Which
The
once,
Conjuring
which
movies.
once again is like I
Yeah.
was saying, they were really good at dropping the Easter eggs, continuing the story, making sure every movie had those parts, and
That's
and,
what makes the Conjuring universe so much fun.
yeah, and
Yeah.
it does, and that is in the Conjuring they discuss. I believe they start off that way, and so the real life, I didn't find a whole lot about this. It was based off supposedly it's Annabelle Higgins, which is a little girl that's invading the doll.
Oh.
I guess in real life is what that is.
I thought it was supposed to be like like when The Conjuring, they like said it was like a demon or whatever. And that's really interesting. And it was actually a little girl.
Well, in the Annabelle movie, they related to the cult of the Ram, which was what the two
Oh,
cultists
yeah.
were, and that factors into the third Conjuring with the Ram cult. So it was a demon that was attached to the doll.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
because I also think I remember them saying, and I think it's a movie thing that they said that it had to be like regular ghosts don't do that. It had to be a dark spirit,
Yeah.
or
that-
a dark entity, something to that effect.
Because
Yeah.
in the movies they say that ghosts will haunt a place, something that is near and dear to
But
them,
possession is
something that only
something
demons
darker,
or dark spirits
yeah,
do.
something darker
Yeah.
and more. Okay, so that definitely makes sense. I also had a little note here, which was really interesting, and so there were some skeptics about the Warrens, and I'm going to get to a lot of that sort of once we go through the movies. But it was interesting because when it came to Annabelle, there was a note that said, yeah, there's a guy that wrote the story, and he's like, yeah, I love this story. When it first appeared on the Twilight Zone 7 years before,
What?
7 years before it happened, and before it was talked about in reality, the Annabelle situation. He said, "Yeah, I love this story when it was on the Twilight Zone, 7 years before." And if you're interested in looking that up, it's actually called "Living Doll" is the name of the episode of the Twilight Zone, and it's in the 5th season. So.
Oh, wow.
Some of the skeptics that came up, that was another thing that came up, is it's kind of, oh yeah, this story's great. I remember this from the Twilight Zone, kind of
Yeah.
saying, yeah, I'm sure this really happened. So
Twilight Zone was
interesting-
ahead of its time.
Yeah, interesting little Twilight Zone was ahead. It was an interesting little tidbit I saw that I thought would be, kind of fun to add.
Yeah,
So, moving on, or
Yeah.
okay. Annabelle Comes Home, 2019. Okay, made in 2019, and Annabelle Comes Home is based in 1969 or 1972, and I'll explain why that is in a second. But first, to give you the description, determined to keep Annabelle from wreaking more havoc, paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren lock the possessed doll in the artifacts room in their house. But when the doll awakens, the room's evil spirits, it soon becomes an unholy night of terror for the couple's 10-year-old daughter, her friends, and their young babysitter. So this movie, as far as I can tell, is also bullshit. I think it was just
Really?
to add on.
I haven't seen it, so I can't verify.
It was
but-
pretty creepy,
Um,
especially like with the kids.
I'm not saying that they didn't say that this happened, but it just I don't think this one is. I don't think there's a whole lot of reality in this one. I
Well-
think this is mostly a Hollywood.
So is this taking place like right before the Warrens get a hold of it?
So this is 1969 or 1972. Annabelle happened in 1967, so this is 2 or 5 years after they had the doll. And I'll explain why it's 1969 or 1972, because Ed puts the doll in the case in 1968, okay? So I guess Annabelle happened in 1967. He puts the doll in the case because they had the case made specially for the doll. And
Yeah.
put the doll in 1968. So in 1969, the daughter is supposedly terrorized by this doll. But the reason that they're not sure and that they say that it could be 1972 is because in the movie they show the music box that is from The Conjuring, which happened in 1971.
Oh.
So the timeline doesn't really make sense there. It's kind of, I don't know if they
Okay.
did that on purpose or not, but it throws the timeline off because how is the movie box there, but supposedly it happened in 1969. So it's a little confusing.
Yeah, someone goofed somewhere.
Yeah, and I don't know if it was on purpose or if it just did happen in 72, but a lot of sources that I looked at said that this happened in 69 based on the girl's age and kind of
Oh yeah.
what was going on there.
Well, that whole room in their house is just creepy to me anyway.
Yeah. The artifact room.
I
Yeah,
would've-
I would not want an artifact room like that.
I really would have enjoyed going in there personally, so that's
I
just
would not wanna have
my
one
thoughts
back
on it. But so that brings us to, unless you guys have anything to add, that takes us away from Annabelle, which I really didn't care for
Yeah.
that series. So
Yeah, that was one of the weakest points for me. I guess that's why I only saw the first one. Probably
Yeah.
watched the others.
yeah, and
Maybe.
the first one was the first one, not Creation, but the first Annabelle was probably the most interesting and the most to anything that could have happened, realistically. So it brings us to The Conjuring, and The Conjuring is described as such. In 1970, paranormal investigators and demonologist Lorraine, played by Vera Farmiga, and
Sure.
Ed, Patrick Wilson. Vera Farmiga was also in Bates Motel. She played.
Yeah, she's a great actress.
Yeah, she is.
I like
She's
her.
amazing. She's really good. And Patrick Wilson is Ed Warren, which I'd said earlier, and he's also an actor that I really enjoy.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's usually fun in everything that he does.
Yeah, he's good. So they're summoned to the home of Carolyn, played by Lily Taylor. She was a long time ago in the movie A Haunting. I don't know if you guys remember that or not. She was kind of the main character in that. I never really cared much for an actress, but A Haunting was a good movie. And Ron Livingston, who we all know from Office Space. So
Yeah.
anyway, that's the Perron, the Perrons. Sorry,
Perron.
Perrons. I've been saying Perron. It's Perron. The Perrons and their 5 daughters have recently moved into a secluded farmhouse where a supernatural presence has made itself known. Though the manifestations are relatively benign at first, events soon escalate in horrifying fashion, especially after the Warrens discover the house's macabre history. Macabre?
Macabre. I believe.
Macabre. Why did I just read that as macabre? I'm
Well,
like
that's-
macabre.
That's kind of how it's spelled. but-
Macabre history.
Like-
Okay, so it's the macabre, and I don't know why I just read it that way.
Oh,
I
it's
saw
like-
it on the page, and
If you look at how baloney's
Yeah,
spelled, you'd
yeah.
be completely confused.
I'm
so. It's
so
utter
anyway,
baloney.
That's embarrassing, but I did catch that, and macabre kind of reminds me of The Office with Sabre and Sabre. But anyway, we're not going to get into all of that right now. So we're at the Conjuring now. So
Yeah, the beginning of it all.
The beginning of it all.
For the Hollywood.
Oh, yeah.
and that one was made in what did I say that one was? That was made in 2013, but it was based in 1971.
Yeah.
So this one included Frenchie's exorcism. The oldest daughter, okay, so let's talk about the movie, because I've got some of the facts that I found here, and I keep almost confusing fiction from reality, even though, that was the whole point of this. So let's talk about the movie first.
All right.
Liza's favorite scary movie.
I do. I love this one. It's got, especially that clap thing, that, like, the clap game, like, that's just the creepiest
We
thing
literally
ever.
watched part of this today, and she can't even watch the part with the witch on the wardrobe. We talked
I
about that
can't
last
see it.
time.
I cannot, that is the crap. I can't do it. I close my eyes every time.
Well, for me, this is arguably the best
Yes.
in the
Yeah,
entire series.
absolutely, 100%.
So they knocked it out of the ballpark, made a super, grade A quality
Yeah.
blockbuster, and we're just trying to.
And that's why they made so many, because
Oh, yeah.
let's keep that money rolling, I mean, I'm sorry, that's just my
And
side
also,
opinion, but it was a
quick
good
little
movie.
tidbit was one of the daughters was actually in Twilight as well. She played Renesmee.
Oh, wow. Nobody
thought-
cares about Twilight. I'm sorry if you care about Twilight. I didn't mean that.
I do.
I'm talking to the listeners, not you. So I agree. It was probably the best one. I would also say, me personally, I kind of like the second one. I think the second one was very close to the first
Really?
as far as how good they were.
I'll definitely agree with that. Out of all the series, the first and the second.
Yeah, they're the two best in my opinion. And in some ways, I kind of like the second one a little bit better. I do like the first one better overall, but I mean, in some ways, I kind of like the story of the second one a little bit, with the old man that lived there before them and the twisted.
Well, yeah, the
Twisted,
Crooked Man
yeah,
in a Crooked
Crooked
House.
Man,
It's a classic, children's story.
Yeah.
And them throwing that in, it works perfectly with the story. It was good writing, good cinematography. Everything in that movie was fun.
And that's why I think the second one for me is so close. It's almost hard to really say, because there are some factors of the second one that I would say I even enjoyed more than.
Well, we're still talking about the first one.
We
so
are
let's
still
get
talking
back
about
to the first one.
So then that's just it. You get into movies, and I mean, I just ramble on. I could talk about movies forever.
The first one, though, the whole story about the witch and how she sacrificed her baby and all that kind of, the story was just very interesting to me. It was just, to me, it was unique.
I would agree. It was a really interesting story, and I think the makeup and stuff was really good. I mean, that was a scary witch.
And there wasn't really anything gimmicky in there to me.
Well, with the Conjuring, it seemed like more than just your average haunting movie.
Yeah.
It had a lot of extra, like, gravitas, as you said, a little extra meat on the bone. And it really stood out. It was a very fun movie, and
It was very macabre.
Yeah.
And it had a whole bunch of different things in there, like the kind of the possession of the mother and her bruises, and then it had the little girl. She had the little, like, imaginary, like, quote, like, friend thing.
I absolutely loved seeing the friend through the mirror of
that
the
was-
music box. I thought that was really a cool touch.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was
Yeah.
a unique item focus
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
just brought a lot to it. There's a lot of parts of that movie
And
that
also-
just really stand out.
Yeah, and also, like, when Lorraine, like, met them and she was going through the house and she was like, I saw him on your back when I first got in here. I saw him your kids.
As soon
yeah,
as I
saw
walked in the house, I
witch.
see it behind
Yeah,
you, and then
just-
it was following your kids around.
Yeah. It was, I just thought it was a really great, and the actors in it were really good.
Yeah.
But you know
Hands
what?
down.
You know why I feel like movies like this that are based on real life and how long the people stayed in the house can't be real compared to the movies, is because if I had to leave my family in that house and go literally live on a dock somewhere in the middle of the lake in Denmark or something, I probably would get away from that fucking witch if it actually jumped on my back.
Yeah, but
Because-
but they said it was going to be with them no matter where they went.
I don't know. I still would have taken my chances. I would have been like, all right, fuck it. I'm going to go to Texas and see if it's there. Because after that scene, like, how could you, if it happened the way it was shown in the movie,
Yeah.
I mean, holy shit. I would probably had a heart attack and died. But if I didn't have a heart attack and die, you'd have to find me, somewhere in fucking China or somewhere, because that, I couldn't deal with something like that.
Oh yeah, and then when the little girl was like, see, she was like, "There's something over there, and and it told me it wanted to kill my entire family." Like that would be like, I'd be like,
And
no.
it just cracked me up though that like the smell of. I don't know what this family eats, but they're literally they describe it as the smell of rotting meat, and the kids and stuff to the movie are accusing each other of farting, and I'm just sitting here like, what does what did they have for dinner that you think that came out of your sister's ass?
Cabbage and kidney beans.
I mean, shit.
That's it. Just those two ingredients. That's it.
I mean, it must have been some kind of crazy combination like that, because they're sitting there like, stop farting, and it's like, but they described it as the smell of rotting meat. Like, I would get up and be like, you need to get your ass checked. We're going to the hospital. I would have woke up mom and dad and been like, I can't imagine this odor coming out of my sister, and like this just isn't right. There's something very fucking wrong about that kind of a stench. And I don't know. I mean, it's just, I worked in a deli when I was younger, and we used to throw away. We actually worked next to the seafood department and the meat department, and the one deli I worked at. So we had this dumpster cooking out in the heat in the summer, and all the meat that they threw away and stuff. And I've smelt this thing before, and if I believed that odor came out of somebody that I knew, I would go to take them to the emergency room instantly. I would not be like, oh, stop farting. I'd be like, get in the car. Get in the fucking car. So I just needed to say that. I don't know what they ate over there. I don't know how that seemed logical to them.
Save it for the doctors.
Yeah, like, you need to put that in a jar, and we're gonna go show somebody that can talk about this, you know. So anyway, beyond that, I would have left that house if something that crazy happened. So that's why it's like, I know that this stuff is so it's so blown out of proportion and made dramatic by Hollywood, because who would stay there after that?
Well, that's one of the failures of Hollywood horror movies is, oh, well, it's over. Let's go back to the house.
Yeah.
It's like that's not.
I would
Exactly.
I would pay
know.
for a moving company. I would
Yeah.
literally pimp out my sister that smells like rotting
Yeah.
meat to fucking
Hey,
pay.
who's the highest bidding doctor?
Yeah, I would pimp her out to pay for a moving company. I'm not going
Well,
back in that
exactly.
house.
Like when I had that snake in my house, and everybody's like, I would burn that house down. Like, I mean, it was just a little tiny black snake as opposed to like a huge weird demon.
I wouldn't.
And people were willing to burn down the house over that. So.
I got a pet snake. Snakes don't bother me one bit. But I get it. Everybody has their things. One of my things must be not tolerating the smell of rotting flesh. So that's another thing. So The Conjuring. What I have here in reality is that the older daughters of the Perrone said that the Warrens didn't even get there till 1974. Just an interesting fact. Once again, pointing out how inconsistent the stories are across the board.
So they were in the house for a while after that?
No, The Conjuring said it took place in 1971, but the oldest daughter said that there's a lot of things going on that led up to the Warrens coming, and that they didn't actually come until 1974. So the timeline's a little off reality versus the movie.
Yeah.
And also, in reality, the Warrens had a seance there, and Roger Perron, sorry, I keep saying Perron, and I apologize. Roger Perron, the father in The Conjuring, actually told them to get the hell out, and that was the end of it. The Warrens left after that, and that was that. So a lot of that, like I said, romanticism and things like that just weren't actually there.
Interesting.
I don't think they were there, or they stayed with them nearly as long as it's made out to be. I don't think it was as happy of a situation. In The Conjuring, there's a part where they're like, we're so happy that you're here, and it feels so normal, and everybody's so, oh, this is great. It's like Christmas. I don't think it was like that at all. I think it was very awkward and uncomfortable. I don't think the Warrens were there for very long. And
So did they set up like their equipment and their cameras?
oh
and
yeah,
stuff
they
like
did get some evidence, but the thing I wonder also is that I was really digging deep for some evidence from a lot of these situations, and it's kind of hard to find, and it's not. You'd think that if they really found the kind of evidence that these movies say that they did, that there wouldn't be a doubt in any of our minds that there's demons and spirits and stuff, because you wouldn't be able to deny that. So
Yeah.
I do think that most of that was also very Dramatized, yes, sorry, thank you. Dramatized by Hollywood as well, because I know damn sure if I witnessed, even on videos and things, the stuff that they said that they witnessed and heard, I would be a believer.
Yeah.
Well,
Not,
pretty
so.
much what I've seen, or like when they showed in the movies, was a picture or two here, voice recordings, things like that.
Yeah.
But it's not a plethora of stuff. It's very limited as to what you see, what's available to look at
Yeah.
or listen to. There's not a lot for all the cases.
Yeah, like that tape they had in The Conjuring where you could hear the stuff in the tape.
Yeah, exactly, and I'm not sure how much of that really exists, if it exists at all. I've got some opinions on all that I will save till the end here. But let's just assume for now, sure, those things exist in some sort of much less dramatic tone or sense in real life. So where are you guys on at The Conjuring? Are you guys ready to move on, or?
Sure.
Yeah, I believe so.
All right. So next we have The Curse of La Llorona. Llorona.
La Llorona.
La Llorona.
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 La Llorona.
Llorona.
Yeah, it's the weeping woman.
The Curse of La Llorona. Right?
Yes.
It's the
Okay.
what?
La Llorona.
What did you say it was a what one?
Oh, La Llorona is the weeping woman. Is literally what it translates to.
That's so sad.
Spanish.
I took
Oh,
four.
it makes
I
sense
took,
if you've seen the
I
movie.
took 4 semesters.
I
of
wanted
Spanish,
to
by
see
the
this,
way.
but I actually never seen this.
Well, you're about to hear what it's about. So,
Spoiler alert.
congratulations. So it was made in 2019, and I did 4 semesters of Spanish, and I totally bombed that. It was made in 2019 in 1970s Los Angeles. The legendary ghost La Llorona is stalking the night and the children, ignoring the eerie warning of a troubled mother. A social worker and her own kids are drawn into a frightening supernatural realm. Their only hope of surviving, La Llorona's deadly wrath is a disillusioned priest who practices mysticism to keep evil at bay.
Oh wow.
Alright, so, have you guys seen this one?
Yes, I have actually.
Excellent.
I remember seeing the
give it-
trailers and everything for it
Give it to
before
us,
it came out.
because I think that I watched this one night half drunk and fell asleep. So
Gotcha.
Liza has not seen this one, and I am not an expert. So please feel free to.
So it's based off of a folktale, Mexican folktale of this woman who was the beauty of her village and falls in love with this traveling, upper class, rich ranchero, and has 2 boys. He ends up leaving, has a mistress, whatnot, and out of distress, when she realizes what's been happening while he's been gone, she, in a fit of rage, drowns her 2 sons and never recovers. Like, she's walking, that she's not eating, she's walking the riverside every night hoping that her sons will come back, and just completely loses her mind and ends up passing away on the riverbed. And it's kind of a folktale to scare the kids, keep them in check, don't go near the river at night. It's a good folktale, and that's basically what the movie's based off. Now, the movie itself does a pretty good telling of that tale and keeping that, I guess, true to that's the story of La Llorona. And I guess it ties in because it has the priest from Annabelle.
Oh.
And
Father Perez.
Father Perez? Yeah. Oh, okay. Forgot his name. I just remembered the face.
It's Father Perez.
And literally the only other tie-in is the shaman / ex-priest ends up taking La Llorona's necklace, which they end up with. There's no necklace in the actual folktale, but they use the necklace to help defeat the spirit of the Weeping Woman, and he's assumedly taking it to the artifact room of Ed and Lorraine Warren.
Now, I thought that I had read, because I didn't get a chance to rewatch this one, but I just read up on it. There's a cameo of Annabelle in that as well, right? Is that right?
With
An
Father
Easter egg?
Perez.
Yeah.
So that's as soon as you meet him, he's like, oh, well, I've had some experience with the supernatural before, and it shows him with the Annabelle doll, and
okay.
it doesn't show the scenes from Annabelle, but it's basically, you
Yeah.
can, it's him, it's the same actor, it's the doll, the Annabelle doll, and they do a little short, little crossover. So.
Sounds interesting. Sounds like it's a good story, but not very
Yeah.
connected to the Warrens.
It's definitely not connected. They try and connect it with the Annabelle doll. And
the Easter
priest.
eggs, the Conjuring universe.
And as I said, at the end, they're just like, oh, well, I know a family out east that would know what to do with this and have it
Oh, yeah.
protected. So, the wraith, the cursed woman, the weeping woman, La Llorona, won't haunt anyone else.
Yeah.
So they're assumedly taking it to Ed and Lorraine, but it's very, very loosely based. It's a part of it. If you see it, you can definitely tell it's a part of the universe of the movies.
Yeah.
But
it's
connected.
not. It's not
It's
standalone.
like watching The Nun. You get the backstory of how the nun is because she's a huge character in the second movie. It's just that's more connected. La Llorona is just there. I still like it, the movie, but
You say I like it the movie.
I like it, the movie.
I thought you said that. I like it the movie. It was a good movie. I like that. I like it the movie.
Yeah.
All right. So that's the most I really have on that because, like I said, if I saw it, and I think I did, I don't remember much about it. And typically, I don't know. I don't know if that's normal or if it's not normal, but I'm the type of person that if I fall asleep during a movie or I even watch a movie like half drunk and I don't really remember it, I still typically don't go back to check it out again. I'm usually just like, all right, that just wasn't meant to be, and I just kind of let it be. I'm not saying that I did that on purpose, but I just never, for whatever reason, probably went back to it. I don't know if it was that compelling. I don't know if it was...
There's a few good scenes. I think it's a little bit heavy on the jump scares.
You and I, when we talk, we like to kind of rate things. Where would you... Let's say The Conjuring. We all like The Conjuring.
Yeah.
So let's say on our scale, as far as these movies go, The Conjuring is the standard. It's a 10. Okay, for the Conjuring universe. Where are you going to put La Llorona?
Based off of the 10 being the original Conjuring.
Yeah, we'll say that that's like the perfect, the standard.
I would rate it about maybe a 7, maybe a 6, 6.5,
6 or 7 isn't bad. That's not.
Yeah,
that's not
like
too bad.
it's a fun movie, but
And also with that scale, since we really didn't do it, where we, I'd put the Annabelle probably like, for me, once again, for me personally, I'd probably put that in the 3-4 area. Just 'cause,
I'm not
not
really
a big
into
Annabelle
Annabelle.
fan, so,
Yeah. And I
I-
have actually seen all of them, so.
well, I've only seen the first one. That's probably why I've not
well,
seen the others.
Where are you putting that?
I'm not a big fan.
Where are you gonna put that? You got 6, 7 for La Llorona, and so where are you gonna put Annabelle?
Oh,
La Annabelle.
Probably maybe a 4, maybe even lower. I really just
Yeah.
didn't care much.
So he
for...
really doesn't like it a movie.
No, I don't.
Not better than La Rancherita.
La Llorona. So this kind of happened unexpectedly. It was, well, not unexpectedly. I thought there was a decent chance that this would happen. So what I'm going to have to do here is I'm going to have to, and this is probably even a shock to my compadres here because I'm the timekeeper. But this is part 1. So we have reached a time where I'm going to go ahead and say, let's go ahead and call this part 1 of Ed and Lorraine Warren.
Okay.
Because the next one on the list is Amityville Horror, and I have a lot to say about that, so I really don't want to try to jam that in 5 minutes here. So, thank you everybody for being here. We're going to be back on in a few minutes here for part 2, hopefully. And thank you to all of our listeners and viewers. Please like and subscribe. Please put comments down below if there's something that we missed or maybe something that you know better. Please feel free to comment. I always love the discussion. I love to see, kind of the banter and what's going on out there. If you all are Ed and Lorraine Warren fans, and the big question at the end that I'm going to put out there in the second video is I really want to know everybody's opinion of how this turns out and where they stand on it. And we'll see what that means after the second one. Please tune in for the second one. It's a fun discussion, and hopefully we'll see you very, very soon.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.